Now, you would think, being a UFC champion, you'd be the most popular guy in the room. Yeah, if you go a bit Tim Sylvia and carry your belt everywhere, you might lose some street cred. But generally, being the best in the world, you're going to get support from the fans. Well, actually, that's not the case in MMA. Despite having the gold belt, fans have found reasons to relentlessly boo several champions over the years. Boring fights, bad decisions, or maybe they just got an entire UFC event cancelled. Either way, I'm Balian from MMA On Point. Shout out to all the MMA OP Hall of Famers out there. And today we're going to look at the 10 MMA champions that were booed the most. Number 10, Kamaru Usman. Looking back, welterweight was pretty good while under the reign of Kamaru Usman. Coming out of the Woodley era, we weren't sure if it was going to be Colby, Leon, or Kamaru that would get the title shot first. When it turned out it was Usman to be the one to put a beating on the champ, it still took the fans quite a while to warm up to him. In fact, he was pretty much booed immediately as soon as he won the belt because that fight kind of sucked.
That's it. We got a new champ, folks.
Let's be honest, he didn't have the most exciting fighting style on the way to the title. There was that whole 30% thing as well, where he was booed out of the stadium for basically another non-fan friendly performance.
I fought this fight sitting at about 30%. Dominated him, and that was at 30%.
MMA fans like elephants. Even when you're champion, they will remember stuff like that. The boring performances then continued as champion as well, though. If there had been a crowd in Abu Dhabi when he fought Masvidal the first time, you could have bet they'd be booing.
Just keep hugging me, just awkward dancing with me and rubbing feet with me. I'm like, man, we're getting paid to fight and you trying to rub feet? Cool, bro.
And then when the rematch happened in Florida, Usman was booed before, during, and even after knocking out the hometown king. Kind of to be expected, though.
Y'all said y'all wanted violence. You're welcome.
Boos or chairs doesn't really, make a difference to me. I just have to go out there being professional and I do my job, and that's what I do best.
Either way, fans apparently didn't have a lot of sympathy for the fact that Usman was still one of the best welterweights ever. Number 9, Israel Adesanya. From the get-go, I think Izzy was polarizing to a lot of MMA fans. Some people just don't like cocky fighters, and Adesanya is a guy who said he pissed all over the cage when he arrived in the UFC, so... And then to some generations, it's just hard to sell anime, painted nails, popping and locking. But he did also give fans other opportunities to boo him as well with some of his performances. It all kind of started at UFC 248 when his first title defense was going to be Yoel Romero, a fan favorite knockout artist who just stood in front of Izzy while Izzy stared back. It was one of the most anticipated matches in recent years, and it just made people fall asleep because they didn't really do much of anything. Anytime the fight stalled, both men got relentlessly booed.
Yeah, this was a terrible fight. It takes two to fight, man. If somebody goes out there and doesn't want to engage and doesn't want to fight, Adesanya did what he had to do, in my opinion.
He was then also booed at UFC 276 against Jared Cannonier. Izzy had this whole Undertaker-like walkout routine, and then the fight just kind of fell flat and became really slow and stale. And so everybody just booed him again.
There were boos at the end. I'm just curious, does that affect you at all?
They've been here since 3 p.m. They're all drunk.
But I guess the nail in the coffin for those same fans was the fight with Sean Strickland, where he pulled every joke out of the bag and had the Australian fans laughing along and booing the champ Adesanya in his own part of the world.
Tomorrow.
It was that performance as well which ultimately led to him losing the belt. Number 8, Anderson Silva. It's hard to look at the record of Anderson Silva, some of his achievements, and believe that he was ever even marginally disliked by UFC fans. But you'd be completely wrong. The source of Anderson's boos always kind of came from the same place though, after he kind of just didn't show up to fight. I guess he set pretty high expectations with his performances, but the first time he pissed off fans and Dana White was his title defense against Patrick Cote. For the first 10 minutes, Anderson was just basically dancing, not fighting. Then Patrick's knee exploded, people started booing, and when Silva tried to get them to stop, it only got worse.
Oh my goodness. Oh man.
Anderson Silva is the most talented fighter in the world when he lets his hands and feet and knees and elbows go. And he did none of that tonight.
But of course, then we saw the same thing happen again against Talis Laitis in his very next fight. It was another performance where the fans thought he was just taking the piss, basically, and not doing all he could to win. He was again booed after the decision, and his manager had to apologize for him. But you translate the post-fight interview, and Anderson basically said, hey, you can boo me if you want, you're paying my salary. It's not going to help you, is it? And of course, a lot of fight fans remember the matchup with Damian Maia in Abu Dhabi. Look, once again, Anderson just kind of sat back and toyed with his prey, while across the world, people just booed at their television screens. This one made Dana so angry, his head almost exploded.
You know, I'm really embarrassed. Anderson doesn't interest me right now, you know?
Number 7, Daniel Cormier. It's always going to be hard for a paper champion to get respect from the fans. When Jon Jones got stripped of the light heavyweight title, Daniel Cormier ended up wearing the belt, but he'd already lost to Jon when they fought. So immediately, DC's championship reign was viewed as fake by the fan base. So every press conference he attended before he rematched Jon, well, you could expect him to be booed. We saw it at the UFC Unstoppable press conference. You'd think that they'd boo Jon after all he'd done, felony hit and run, but no.
Boo me, yes, that makes a lot of sense. But
The rematch with Jon at UFC 200 fell apart though, and instead DC fought Anderson Silva on short notice, hoping, to give the fans something to cheer about. But when DC started wrestling him, he was absolutely booed into oblivion at UFC 200. It just seemed like, DC couldn't win. I think he just came to terms with it by the end. When he started setting records at heavyweight though, he'd kind of established a legacy of his own, and fans finally went back on his side. Number 6, Brock Lesnar. As an MMA fan, it's pretty easy to boo Brock Lesnar. When he got to the UFC, pro wrestling, that's not even real. This is MMA, bro. Who does he think he is? This guy's going to get destroyed. When he fought Frank Mir in his UFC debut, he was probably the most booed debuting fighter ever. And then the fans got vindicated because he got submitted. And then after just one win, he was booked to fight Randy Couture for the heavyweight title, and fans thought he didn't deserve it at all, especially because there was also an interim champion. And when Brock won the belt, he was coronated with tons of boos.
Brock Lesnar, ladies and gentlemen!
Those boos were nothing compared to what they gave him at UFC 100 though. Even at the weigh-ins, he was being booed. When Brock got top position, everyone started booing, and at one point they were just chanting. He finished Frank and then just let the fans have it post-fight, giving them all the finger to a chorus of boos.
That's not going to win him any fans.
And of course, the boos followed him to weigh-ins for his next fight against Shane Carwin as well. But in that fight, Brock would go for a ton of adversity, and for the first time was actually cheered when he won. Number 5, Ryan Bader. Okay, Darth Vader, right? Scary guy, beat a lot of top competition, but never did quite rule the galaxy, did he? All right, Ryan Bader, pretty much the same, right? He got past guys like Rampage and Nogueira, but got big brothered and high grounded by Jon Jones. Thought he might win a title, got flatlined by Rumble Johnson, and at that point quit the Empire to join the Rebel Alliance, aka Bellator.
This metaphor is really falling apart.
And in his debut, they let him fight for the light heavyweight title against Phil Davis. Couldn't ask for a better debut, can you? But he wasn't exactly welcomed by the fans in that fight. Despite the lackluster performance, he still won the belt, but, even as a champion, Ryan Bader got booed. Even when he went up to heavyweight, while still 205 champ, the Bellator fans had no sympathy for his wrestling style at all. I mean, look at the Matt Mitrione fight. Fans just did not give a shit.
I give Matt Mitrione nothing but props. He has hung in here against an incredible fighter in Ryan Bader and what he's done tonight.
Brutal. He was even booed in victory. And then when he fought Czech Congo for the first time, well, Ryan poked the guy in the eye, so everyone just booed him. But oh my God, guys, the rematch. It might be the most booed fight of all time. It happened in Paris, France. Bellator had been the first major promotion to put a show on there. Then they came back 2 years later and headlined it with a Bellator heavyweight title fight, Bader versus Congo. The French fans should have warmed to the show like a freshly baked croissant. But the fight was so bad, they instead showered the cage with thousands of boos.
They're booing here, but this is Bader.
still Bellator Heavyweight World Champion Ryan Darth Vader.
The French fans had no mercy, and why would they? The American held their guy against the fence for 25 minutes. I mean, it was so boring. Number 4, Jon Jones. The Marmite of MMA, love him or hate him. Now, at one point, fans had very little reason to boo Jon Jones. I mean, he smashed 4 champions inside of a year. But when he refused to fight Chael Sonnen on short notice at 151, the whole event was scrapped. Jon ended up facing Vitor Belfort, and the fans let Jones know what they thought of him. This kind of carried over to the fight with Chael Sonnen as well, when he got booed during the weigh-ins, even after a season of tough where he got to show his personality. It didn't seem to bother Jon too much until some of his fights, not just his personal life, was coming into question. You know, after an extremely close fight with Thiago Santos, he was named the winner and the fans just booed him.
It doesn't feel good to be booed.
His next fight with Reyes was even closer, and he got a mixed reaction when they announced the winner in that one as well. But despite all he's done outside the cage, you know, when it came to fighting Cyril Gane, the Frenchman was being booed because I guess people still just love Jon Jones. Number 3, Aljamain Sterling. I do feel like we've gone over the way Aljamain Sterling won his title several times on this channel. Petr Yan illegally need him. Aljo couldn't continue. He was made the champ. Initial reaction from the fans, hostile, okay? Partially because they thought Yan was the future of the division and they thought Aljamain probably could have continued, and it was a bit of a cheeky way to win the belt. From Sterling's perspective, you know, he was not happy with the way things went, but did he expect to then be hated his entire championship reign because of it? No, I don't think he did. And in the immediate rematch with Yan, the crowd showed how they felt. Granted, he was just controlling him for a lot of that fight, but even so, the fans just booed him.
That's terrible! Guys, stop booing Aljamain. It's time to stop booing Aljamain Sterling. It sucks that this happens time and time again.
Merab Dvalishvili went so far to say that the boos from the crowd affected round 1 against Sean O'Malley and made him change game plan, and it led to the knockout. Number 2, Tim Sylvia. When Pride was kicking ass in Japan, they had all the coolest and the best heavyweights, okay? Fedor, Big Nog, Krokop, and at the same time in the UFC, you had this big, tall guy called Tim Sylvia. Unfortunately for Tim, despite trying to win over the fans, no one gave him any respect as a champion. First of all, Tim didn't exactly look like what UFC fans had in mind when you heard World Heavyweight Champion. You know, he was kind of a lanky guy, which at the time didn't really play with the audience at home who expected, you know, Mark Coleman kind of characters. And when he had his chance to perform, well, unfortunately, he put on some of the most boring title fights, like, ever. His third fight with Andrei Arlovski went a long 25 minutes, and I don't think fans ever forgave him for it.
It goes the distance, 25 minutes.
Of course, after that, he fought Jeff Monson. It was just as boring. Monson didn't even look like he should be in there, and Tim couldn't even finish him either. There was also the fact, the whole time this was going on, fans knew him as a cheat. You know, he tested positive before all this at UFC 44 after his first title defense. And he said he took them to help with his body image issues, which I think some fans just laughed at, to be honest. When he was beaten by Randy Couture, I think fans did actually cheer extra loud, to be honest. Alright, how about some honourable/dishonourable boo mentions? Don't ask me why, but Junior Dos Santos got tons of boos while defending his belt against Cain Velasquez. He got beaten up for 5 rounds and then just got booed post-fight. He even had to ask why. It's also a pretty hard rule if you're going up against Conor McGregor, you're going to get booed. Eddie Alvarez found that out in New York when he went up against a pro-Conor crowd. Jose Aldo got booed. Imagine booing that legend. Even Khabib was booed before their fight and also after, but you know why that was. He started a bloody riot. Benson Henderson was one champion who also had a bit of a tough time. I mean, the UFC kept booking him against guys in their hometown. He fought Gilbert Melendez in San Jose and Benson got booed, even when he was trying to propose to his girlfriend. And then he had to defend the title against Anthony Pettis in his hometown of Milwaukee, and once again got booed as the invading bad guy. Give him a break. Also, probably have to mention Bilal Muhammad. I mean, he was booed before being a champ. Now that he has a title, it's hard to believe that's going to change, but I guess time will tell with that one. But still, number 1, Tyron Woodley. There's a couple of ways you can handle the fan base when they're booing you. You can take a lesson from pro wrestling, lean into it. You know, speaking of Bilal, he's pretty good at that. Telling fans that their hometown football team's going to get smashed, you know, and getting more boos, he's playing into it. But Woodley kind of did the opposite. He could have tried to ignore the boos, but instead he often called out the fans and demanded their respect.
First of all, I'm going to give the fans a chance to boo. Go ahead and boo and get out the way. There you go. Got done?
Now, initially as a champ, fans didn't like the fact Woodley had waited so long without fighting because he felt like he deserved a title shot. And then as soon as he won the belt, he was calling out non-ranked challengers like Nick freaking Diaz instead of standing up and fighting Stephen Thompson.
That's one of the problems that Tyron Woodley has and why the fans turn on Tyron Woodley.
Fans didn't like it. And at the very first press conference in New York for that fight, Woodley was being booed.
And number 1, ooh, I'm getting booed.
It didn't help as well that he had absolutely soul-sucking performances like the fight against Damian Maia. Fans were basically just begging for that one to end so Jones vs. Cormier 2 could get started.
The record was broken for the least amount of strikes thrown in any fight.
Dana went off at him after that one. I mean, he apparently even took the GSP fight away from Woodley. It's hard to find a moment in Tyron's reign where he wasn't booed. It just goes to show if you lose the support of the fan base, it's very, very hard to win you guys back over, isn't it? You guys booed him, not me. Want to give a big shout out to Max Randall for editing the video. Guys, check out his social media, or you can check out his new channel, The Combat Arcade. Thank you as well to all you Channel Hall of Famers out there for your support every single month. Guys, if you want to join them, you can click the button down below, link in the description to find out more what you can get as a channel member. What did you think? Who deserved to be booed? Who didn't deserve to be booed? Did I miss anyone out? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, guys, if you enjoyed it, always give us a thumbs up. You know, it's much appreciated. You can subscribe as well. Then you get notifications. It's pretty good. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I will see you in the next one. Appreciate you. Boo! It's not very nice, is it?